Life has a funny way of rewarding clarity and punishing confusion. And one of the greatest confusions in the human experience is this: thinking that being nice, overly nice, is a virtue without consequence. But let me tell you something profound. If you bend too far to keep others comfortable, you will eventually break the spine of your own success. There's a difference between kindness and compliance, between compassion and surrender. Too many good people, well-meaning people, end up broke, overlooked, and burned out, not because they weren't talented, but because they didn't know how to say no. They traded strength for approval. And let me remind you, the world does not pay you for how much you please others. It pays you for the value you create. Being too nice might win you applause in the short term, but it can cost you the very things that make a life worth building. Self-respect, boundaries, progress, and ultimately, success. And I'm not talking about being rude or harsh, no. I'm talking about developing the courage to protect your time, your mind, and your mission. So ask yourself, are you being nice or are you being used? Are you being kind or are you being silent when you should speak? Are you serving others or abandoning yourself in the process? This isn't just a conversation about attitude. It's a conversation about survival, financially, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Success, after all, is reserved not for the agreeable, but for the disciplined. Not for the always available, but for the intentional. So let's walk through this together. 5 reasons why being too nice, if left unchecked, can quietly destroy everything you're working for. Number 1, people-pleasing is a poverty habit. If you spend your life trying to make everyone else happy, you'll end up broke, tired, and forgotten. Let me tell you something important that's going to sting a little, but if you let it sink in, it just might save your future. People-pleasing is a poverty habit. Now, I know that sounds harsh, maybe even unfair, but I'll tell you why it's true. You cannot climb the ladder of success with both hands tied behind your back, trying to hold on to everyone else's approval. It simply doesn't work that way. If you spend your life trying to make everyone else happy, you'll end up broke, tired, and forgotten. And that's no way to live. I've seen it happen too many times. Good people, smart people, talented people, but they couldn't say no. Couldn't stand the thought of disappointing someone. Couldn't bear the discomfort of conflict. So instead of building their own life, they became managers of everyone else's emotions. They didn't build wealth. They didn't build influence. They didn't build peace. They built a house of obligations. They became experts in keeping others comfortable while slowly becoming miserable themselves. Now, listen, there's nothing wrong with being kind. I'm not saying go out and be rude or cold-hearted. What I'm saying is there's a difference between kindness and self-erasure. Success isn't about making enemies, but it also isn't about sacrificing your voice just to keep the peace. If every time someone wants something from you, you say yes, even when your gut says no, what you're really doing is teaching the world to value you less. You become a convenience, not a force. And success doesn't show up for convenience. One of the great enemies of progress is the addiction to approval. That desire to be liked by everyone is subtle but deadly. It sneaks into your calendar. It invades your decisions. It drains your bank account. You start taking meetings you don't need, saying yes to projects that don't serve your vision, buying things to impress people who aren't even paying attention. You become an actor in someone else's play, and while you're acting, your real life, the one you were supposed to live, is passing you by. I remember when I was young and building my career, I used to think the more agreeable I was, the more success I'd have. If I was nice to everyone, surely they'd help me in return. But what I found out is the opposite usually happens. People start to expect you to bend. They start counting on your silence, your willingness to pick up the slack, cover for their laziness, or put your needs aside becomes part of their plan. That's not partnership. That's self-abandonment. Success requires clarity, and clarity requires boundaries. You can't please everyone and still please your purpose. You can't grow if you're constantly adjusting your dreams to fit someone else's comfort zone. I had to learn to say no. No to distractions, no to unnecessary obligations, no to people who didn't respect my time or my goals. And guess what? The world didn't end. Some people walked away, and that was fine, because the people who matter, the ones who respect purpose over pleasantries, they stuck around, and they helped me grow. Wealth is built by people who value their time. You can be generous, but not reckless. You can be humble, but not invisible. If every decision you make runs through the filter of, will they be upset, instead of, is this aligned with my purpose, then you're trading your power for temporary peace. But there's no peace in poverty, and there's no freedom in people-pleasing. The truth is, some people will never be pleased, no matter how much you do for them. And chasing that approval is a race with no finish line. Let me ask you something. How many times have you said yes this week just to avoid discomfort? How many things did you agree to that took you further away from your goals? How many hours did you spend doing what others wanted at the cost of what you needed? That's the price of being too nice. It's not just emotional, it's economic. While you're keeping others happy, your dreams are going unfunded. Every yes to the wrong thing is a no to the right thing. And that's how people stay broke, not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they never drew the line. They never said, this is what I stand for, this is what I'm building, and if it doesn't fit, I can't participate. You need backbone to succeed. Not arrogance, not ego, backbone. The kind that lets you smile and say no thank you and move on without guilt. The kind that keeps you focused when distractions come dressed as obligations. The kind that allows you to choose purpose over popularity. And here's the kicker. When you stop living for approval, you gain respect. Real respect. Not the shallow kind that disappears the moment you stop pleasing people, but the deep kind that comes when people know you have standards, that you value your time, that you have a direction. Respect builds trust, and trust builds influence. And influence is the currency of success. I've always said, winners focus on purpose, not permission. That's the shift. Stop waiting for the world to agree with you before you act. Stop seeking confirmation before you move. Decide who you are. Define what you want. And then go after it with everything you've got, even if it means disappointing a few people along the way. You were not put on this earth to be everyone's cushion. You were put here to build, to grow, to create something meaningful. And that requires decisions, sometimes hard ones. So if you're tired of being tired, maybe it's time to retire the habit of being too nice. You don't need to be liked by everyone. You need to be respected by the right ones. Choose purpose, choose clarity, choose progress, because the alternative, staying broke, tired, and forgotten, isn't much of a life at all. Now's the time to stop asking for permission and start building with precision. Let's build on that idea, because here's something else I learned early. If you say yes too much, you're really just saying no to yourself. And for most people, they don't even realize it until it's too late. They wake up one day overwhelmed, scattered, behind on their own goals, wondering how they got there. Well, I'll tell you how. 1,000 little yeses to things that didn't matter, and 1,000 quiet no's to the things that did. You've got to learn this principle if you want to rise above average. Every yes you give away is like writing a check. Time, energy, focus, and some of you have been writing checks your bank account can't cash. You've got obligations stacked up like debt, and the interest is your peace of mind. I remember a season in my life where I was saying yes to everything. Every meeting, every dinner, every favor, every request. I thought that's what successful people did. They stayed available. I thought being helpful made me indispensable. But what it actually did was dilute me. I was spread so thin that nothing I touched had depth. I was showing up everywhere, but not really present anywhere. I was exhausted, not from work, but from overcommitment. You see, being nice is not the same as being wise. It feels good in the moment to say yes, to avoid disappointment, to be the hero. But in the long term, if you keep saying yes to the urgent, you'll never have time for the important. You'll say yes to distractions, yes to mediocrity, yes to people who don't respect your time, and in the process, you'll say no to your goals, your growth, and your greatness. High achievers understand something simple but powerful. Their time is their most valuable asset. They treat it like treasure. They don't hand it out at every knock on the door. You've got to develop that mindset. Your time is your seed. Where you plant it determines what kind of harvest you'll reap. And if you're planting it in everyone else's garden, don't be surprised when your own field stays empty. Now, I've known people who wore their busyness like a badge of honor, always in motion, always doing for others, always being the nice one. But behind the scenes, they were quietly miserable. Their dreams were on pause. Their health was suffering. Their finances were a mess. Why? Because they were too afraid to say one simple word: no. I'm not saying you should become selfish, but you do need to become selective. Not every request deserves a yes. Not every opportunity is aligned with your vision. You've got to get better at discerning the difference between a distraction and a direction. Sometimes people will offer you good things, but you've got to say no to the good so you can say yes to the best. I once turned down a big event, high visibility, important people, great exposure, but it didn't align with where I was heading. If I had said yes, I would have missed a window to work on a program that later changed the entire trajectory of my business. That was a turning point. I learned sometimes your destiny is protected by your discipline, and that discipline starts with clarity. You have to know what you want. Because once you're clear on your direction, saying no becomes easier. It's no longer a rejection, it's protection. It's not that you're being rude, it's that you're being responsible with your future. A man once came to me and said, "I don't understand it. I help everyone. I'm always available, but I feel stuck." I asked him to walk me through his week. It was filled with errands, meetings, favors, calls, everything for others. I said, "Now, show me where you're working on your dream." Silence. That was the problem. His schedule was full, but his purpose was starving. He was living everyone else's life and dying to live his own. You've got to guard your calendar like a king guards his gold. Time is not something you get back. Every yes must be a strategic investment. Will it move you forward? Will it multiply your effort? Will it stretch you, grow you, build you? If not, it might be better left on the table. Here's a mindset shift. Nice people aim to be liked. Strategic people aim to be effective. And I'll tell you, effectiveness brings real respect. The kind that sticks around long after the applause dies down. If you want to build wealth, if you want to build legacy, you must become a master of your minutes, because your future is hidden in your daily decisions. Let me also say this. Saying no doesn't make you mean. It makes you mature. It means you've grown to value your priorities. It means you're no longer available for every distraction disguised as a favor. It means your goals have finally gotten a seat at the table. One of the greatest disciplines I developed was the habit of pausing before I answered. When someone asked for something, my time, my energy, my presence, I stopped and asked myself, will this take me closer to or further from my vision? Not emotionally, but logically. And when the answer was further, I politely declined. You'd be amazed how much your life improves when you stop automatically saying yes. Now, let me give you a practical step. Build a decision filter. Know your top 3 priorities. Anything that doesn't support those priorities gets a no. It's not personal, it's purposeful. And when you start living like that, you'll be amazed how fast your life starts moving forward. Doors will open, focus will sharpen, progress will accelerate. Why? Because you finally stopped bleeding energy into the wrong assignments. Nice is fine, but focused is better. Helpful is noble, but intentional is wealth building. You don't owe everyone your time. You owe yourself your future, and sometimes that means disappointing a few people so you don't disappoint your destiny. So the next time someone asks, can you do this for me? Pause. Think. Don't just react. Ask yourself, if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to in my own life? And then choose wisely. Because saying no to them might just be the moment you say yes to the life you were meant to live. Let's keep building, because once you've learned to say no, there's another principle that goes hand in hand with it. You teach people how to treat you. That's right. Not just by what you say, but by what you tolerate. What you allow is what will continue. And I'll tell you, this lesson cost me a few years of frustration before I finally got it. You see, early in my career, I had a hard time drawing lines. I thought that if I was kind, patient, and agreeable, people would naturally respect my time, my energy, my mission. But instead, I found myself surrounded by people who didn't value my time, constantly interrupted my work, and expected me to be available on their terms. I wasn't setting a standard. They were. And they set it low, because I never told them otherwise. One day I looked around and realized this is my fault. I had trained them, not on purpose, of course, but by staying silent, by always saying, it's okay, by always showing up no matter how much it cost me. I had taught them how to treat me. And if I wanted that to change, I had to retrain them. You don't get what you deserve in life, you get what you tolerate. And if you tolerate being overlooked, undervalued, taken for granted, that's exactly what you'll get. It's not because people are evil, it's because people respond to signals. And silence, my friend, is a signal. The more you let things slide, the more people think it's acceptable. You can be generous and still have boundaries. You can be kind and still say, this is not okay. There's nothing noble about letting people walk all over your ambition. Nothing heroic about being a doormat in the name of being nice. That's not kindness. That's self-betrayal with a polite smile. Let me give you a practical example. I once had a business partner who constantly pushed deadlines, delayed meetings, and made excuses. At first, I let it go. I didn't want conflict. I told myself he was busy or maybe just adjusting, but months went by and the pattern didn't change. It got worse. And it started costing us money. Now I had a choice. Keep tolerating it and watch the business suffer, or draw a hard line. I chose the line. We had a conversation. I laid out the expectations, the standards, the consequences. Guess what? Things changed, not because he suddenly became a new man, but because I changed the rules of engagement. I stopped tolerating mediocrity disguised as busy. I reclaimed the standard. That's what boundaries do. They protect your value. And when people see that you respect your time, they either rise to meet you or they leave. Either way, you win. Some of you are surrounded by people who constantly interrupt your flow. They call during your writing hours, they drop by unannounced, they guilt you into favors, and you say yes because you don't want to seem rude. But while you're being polite, your purpose is getting plundered. Let me tell you something important. Your time is sacred. Your dreams are sacred. And if someone disrespects the boundaries you've set around those things, they're not supporting you, they're sabotaging you, whether they know it or not. I remember mentoring a young entrepreneur who was trying to build his business while working full time. Every evening he carved out 2 hours to work on his vision, but he kept letting his friends interrupt. They'd call, they'd stop by, they'd invite him out, and he never said no. He'd say just this once, and just this once turned into a pattern. His business never took off. Why? Because he didn't enforce his boundaries. He trained his friends to see his dream time as optional, and he suffered for it. Eventually, I sat him down and said, listen, they're not the problem, you are. You've taught them that your time is negotiable. You've taught them that their plans matter more than your progress. If you want that to change, you have to change. He took that to heart. He got serious. He made a rule. No interruptions from 6 to 8 p.m. He communicated it clearly. And when they tested it, he held the line. You know what happened? Some friends faded away, but others respected him more. And his business finally started growing. Why? Because he taught people how to treat him. It's the same in every area. Business, relationships, family. If someone constantly dismisses your ideas, ignores your needs, or makes light of your goals, and you let it happen, you're giving them permission to keep doing it. But the moment you raise your standard, everything starts shifting. Now, this doesn't mean you go around demanding respect with a megaphone. It means you start with self-respect. People mirror what you model. If you don't value your time, no one else will. If you constantly downplay your needs, others will do the same. You have to show the world by how you live what is acceptable in your life and what is not. You've got to draw the line between kindness and compromise, between generosity and self-neglect, between helping someone and enabling their disrespect. It's a fine line, but you've got to find it. And once you find it, defend it. Because the life you want to live cannot be built in an environment of low standards and broken boundaries. Sometimes that means having hard conversations. Sometimes it means saying, I'm not okay with that. Sometimes it means walking away from people who refuse to honor your growth. But every time you do, you reinforce your value. And that, my friend, attracts the right people, the right opportunities, and the right results. Here's the bottom line. Your standards shape your circle. Your boundaries protect your brilliance. And your willingness to enforce them determines how far you'll go. You want to build wealth? Then build a life that demands respect, not just from others, but from yourself. Because when you stop tolerating the things that diminish you, You make room for the things that empower you. And that's when life begins to shift. That's when the right people show up. That's when your time starts working for you, because you finally stop teaching the world to treat you like you don't matter. You showed them, through your choices, that you're someone worth honoring. And once that lesson is taught, it's hard to forget. Let's move forward, because if being too nice is costing you boundaries, then indecision is what's robbing you blind behind your back. Let me tell you something blunt and true. Indecision is the disease of the overly nice. It doesn't show up with fanfare. It doesn't knock on your door. It creeps in slowly, quietly, and before you know it, years have passed, and you're still stuck at the crossroads. I've seen it 100 times. Good people, smart people, kind people, they want to make the right choice. They don't want to step on toes. They don't want to ruffle feathers. So what do? Nothing. They hesitate. They wait. They overthink. And while they're still analyzing the perfect path, the bold are already halfway to the finish line. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be thoughtful. I'm not saying you should jump without looking. But there's a line between wisdom and paralysis. And if you're too nice to say no, too careful to say yes, too timid to decide, you're losing more than your peace. You're losing opportunity. There's an old saying, indecision is the thief of opportunity. And it is, because life doesn't wait while you're being nice and polite, trying to please everyone, trying not to rock the boat. The window closes. The job is gone. The business opportunity passes. The person moves on. And all that's left is regret dressed in politeness. Nice people hesitate. Bold people decide. Think about it. What's the root of indecision? It's fear, right? Fear of getting it wrong, fear of failure. But for the overly nice, it's often something deeper. Fear of disappointing someone. Fear of looking selfish. Fear of someone being upset with your choice. So what happens? You play small. You delay. You postpone your dreams so nobody else gets uncomfortable. But here's the harsh truth. That kind of hesitation is costly. It costs you your future, your confidence, your momentum. I remember mentoring a young man named Marcus. Brilliant guy, big ideas, but every time he got close to launching his business, he'd backtrack. Why? He didn't want to upset his parents, who thought he should stay in a safe job. He didn't want to disappoint his friends, who didn't understand entrepreneurship. He didn't want to risk failure, so he stayed stuck. Nice and broke. I finally told him, Marcus, you're not being nice. You're being cowardly. There's a difference. You're not protecting people. You're avoiding your own calling. You're so afraid of rejection, you're rejecting your own potential. That shook him, and eventually he made the decision. He left the job, launched his business, and never looked back. But it didn't happen until he stopped letting niceness make his decisions for him. You've got to understand, decisiveness is a wealth skill. Every successful person I've ever met has this one trait in common. They decide quickly and change slowly. They trust their instincts. They calculate, yes, but they don't freeze. They understand that most opportunities are time sensitive. Wait too long and they're gone. And indecision doesn't just affect your career. It poisons your relationships, your health, your personal growth. Think about the person who knows they need to leave a toxic relationship, but keeps saying, I don't want to hurt them. So they stay, and the damage deepens. Think about the person who knows they need to start working out, start writing that book, start making changes, but they keep saying, I'm not ready, and the days slip away. Nice people delay. But your destiny doesn't care how nice you are. It rewards the decisive. Here's the secret. Clarity comes after action, not before it. You'll never have 100% certainty. And if you wait until everything feels perfect, you'll wait forever. The path reveals itself when you take the step, not before. Action breeds clarity. Action breeds confidence. And action, even imperfect action, moves you forward. So how do you kill indecision? First, you stop needing everyone's approval. Make peace with the fact that some people won't like your choices. That's okay. You're not building their life, you're building yours. Second, set deadlines on your decisions. Give yourself a window. By Friday, I decide. Because an open-ended decision becomes a permanent delay. And permanent delays become permanent regret. Third, trust your intuition. You've got wisdom inside of you. Don't ignore it. Don't smother it with everyone else's opinion. Listen, trust, decide, and finally take action immediately, even if it's small. Send the email, make the call, say the yes, say the no, just move. Because once you do, momentum kicks in. And momentum is magic. Let me leave you with this. While nice people are asking, what if I fail? The bold are asking, what if this works? While the indecisive are wondering, will they approve? The decisive are declaring, this is my path. And while the hesitant are overthinking, the courageous are overtaking. Don't let indecision steal your future. Don't let being overly nice rob you of your power. You weren't made to sit on the sidelines of your own life. You were made to lead it. So make the call. Set the deadline. Burn the boats if you have to, because every moment you hesitate, someone else is stepping into what could have been yours, and you've been polite long enough. Now it's time to be powerful. Let me draw a line in the sand today. You can be kind, but you must be clear. These two aren't opposites, they're partners. In fact, one without the other leads to trouble. Most people mistake niceness for kindness. They believe keeping the peace means never disagreeing, never correcting, never confronting. But that's not peace. It's passivity. And passivity leads to problems. Let me tell you the truth as plain as I can. Clarity is kindness. Weakness is not. When you avoid hard conversations under the banner of being nice, you're not protecting anyone. You're just protecting your own discomfort. And that's not noble. That's fear. Wearing the mask of kindness. If your kindness isn't rooted in truth, it becomes manipulation. You're not helping others grow. You're helping them stay stuck. You're not building trust. You're building resentment that will eventually explode. There's a world of difference between kindness and niceness. Kindness is strong. It speaks the truth even when it's uncomfortable. It corrects when needed. It holds people accountable. Niceness is weak. It says what sounds good, avoids confrontation, and leaves people confused. Kindness leads to growth. Niceness leads to frustration. Let me give you a story. Years ago, I worked with a bright young leader, great potential, but he avoided confrontation like the plague. He thought being liked was the highest virtue. He smiled when things went wrong. He let his team underperform. He avoided feedback because he didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. He believed he was keeping morale high, but his team fell apart. Missed deadlines, poor communication, low trust. Eventually, his best people left. He came to me, frustrated, and said, "Jim, I've been so nice to everyone, Why is this happening? I told him plainly, you're not being kind, you're being unclear. You're buying temporary comfort at the cost of long-term excellence. If you care about people, really care, you owe them the truth. And the truth doesn't have to be harsh, it just has to be honest. Kindness without clarity is a half-truth, and a half-truth can ruin a whole life. Whether it's a business, a friendship, a marriage, or your own personal growth, you cannot thrive without clarity. People can't read your mind. If you don't speak your expectations, they'll guess. And guessing leads to confusion. Confusion leads to tension. Tension leads to broken trust. But when you're clear, people may not always agree with you, but they will respect you. Clarity builds confidence both in yourself and in the people around you. Let me say this too. You don't need to be cruel to be clear. You can be direct and still be graceful. Clarity is not aggression, it's precision. You can say, I care about you, but this isn't working. You can say, I want to support you, but I won't tolerate this behavior. You can say, here are my boundaries. Here's what I expect. And you can do it with strength and love. In fact, people are desperate for this. They're tired of vague, tired of guesswork, tired of being left in the dark. They want leaders, friends, mentors, people who tell the truth with courage and compassion. There's a quote I love. The truth may hurt for a moment, but a lie hurts forever. And when you're too nice to be honest, you're telling a lie. One small silence at a time. You're letting people live in illusion because you don't want to rock the boat. But guess what? That boat sinks eventually. Truth is the anchor. Truth is the lifeboat. You don't help anyone by hiding what's real. If you want to grow, if you want to lead, if you want peace, you must speak clearly. You must stop burying your needs to keep the peace. You must stop excusing poor behavior. You must stop being nice to your own weaknesses and start being kind enough to grow past them. The more clear you become, the more peace you will feel. Because when people know where you stand, what you accept, what you don't, what you believe, they can either rise to meet you or walk away. And both outcomes serve your future. So what can you do right now? First, start speaking the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Don't dance around the real issue. Say it clearly and respectfully. Second, practice the kind but clear sentence. Use this. Because I value our relationship, I need to be honest with you. That one sentence can change everything. Third, stop apologizing for having standards. Your boundaries are not a burden. They are a sign of your self-respect. If someone can't handle them, they're not for you. Fourth, model clarity in everything you do. Be the person who communicates openly, follows through, and holds high expectation. The world doesn't need more people pleasers. It needs truth tellers. People with soft hearts and strong spines. People who say what they mean what they say, and don't back down from honesty. You don't have to yell, you don't have to argue, you just have to speak clearly. Because when you do, your life changes. When you're clear, your relationships improve, your confidence grows, your mission sharpens, your peace deepens. Stop hiding behind niceness. Speak truth with love. Stand tall in your standards. Remember, you can be kind and you must be clear. In today's world, we've been conditioned to believe that niceness is the highest virtue. We're taught that being nice will make people like you, make people accept you, and ultimately make you successful. But I have to tell you, the truth is a little different. You see, nice people survive, they get by, they make it through the day, and they often keep the peace. But the real question is, what kind of life are you living when all you're doing is surviving? We weren't meant to just survive, we were meant to thrive. And thriving doesn't come from being nice, it comes from being strong. Strength is not cruelty, it's courage. It's the courage to say no when everyone else is pushing you to say yes. It's the courage to stand tall in your truth, even when it feels uncomfortable. Strength is what enables you to lead your life on purpose, to build the future you want, and to push through challenges with a clear mind and an unwavering spirit. If you spend all your time trying to please people, if you bend to every whim and demand, you're not only giving up your power, you're weakening yourself. The competition out there is fierce. The distractions are endless. The manipulations are real. In a world like this, being overly nice is a liability. It's not a strength. It's a weakness. Nice people are often too afraid to make tough decisions. They avoid conflict at all costs. They don't want to rock the boat. But what happens when you're constantly avoiding the things that need to be dealt with? What happens when you avoid the hard conversations, the uncomfortable truths, and the bold actions? The answer is simple. You let the world dictate your path instead of taking the wheel yourself. You let your circumstances determine your success. You let people push you around. That's not living, that's surviving. But you, my friend, were meant for more than that. You were born with power, with potential, with the ability to create. But to unlock that power, you need to make a shift. You need to stop surviving and start succeeding. You need to stand guard at the door of your mind and stop allowing the world to dictate your thoughts and actions. You need to cultivate strength, not the kind of strength that crushes others, but the kind of strength that makes you unshakable in the face of adversity. The kind of strength that doesn't need the approval of others to move forward. You need the courage to say no when everyone else is trying to make you say yes. This is the strength that leaders are made of. Leaders are not the ones who always agree, always appease, or always avoid confrontation. Leaders are the ones who lead with purpose. They lead with vision. They make tough decisions, not because they're cruel, but because they know that strength is a choice. You can choose to be strong, to say no, to stay true to your goals, and to lead your life with integrity. You can choose to stop being a victim of circumstances and start being the creator of your reality. That is the power of strength. So how do you cultivate this strength? Well, it starts with a commitment to yourself. You need to take responsibility for your actions, for your choices, and for your future. That means no more blaming the world, no more excuses, and no more waiting for permission to pursue your dreams. You need to look at your life and ask, am I truly living on purpose, or am I just going through the motions to avoid conflict? Once you recognize where you're just surviving, it's time to make a change. Start by setting clear boundaries. Say no when you need to, and do it without guilt. Say yes to your goals, your growth, and your future. And most importantly, stand guard at the door of your mind. Stop letting every passing thought, every distraction, every opinion influence your decisions. Your mind is your most powerful asset. Don't let it be hijacked by fear, doubt, or the expectations of others. Guard it fiercely. Protect it like the treasure it is. The reality is this: nice people may survive, but strong people succeed. They're the ones who achieve greatness. They're the ones who break through barriers, who make an impact, who build empires. They don't wait for permission. They don't seek approval. They don't shy away from challenges. Instead, they rise to meet them head on with strength, courage, and an unshakable belief in their own power. So ask yourself today, what kind of life do you want? Do you want to survive, living in the shadows of others' expectations and opinions? Or do you want to succeed, standing tall in your own strength and creating the life you've always dreamed of? The choice is yours. Choose strength. Choose purpose. Choose success. And remember this: you were never meant to be just nice. You were meant to be strong. Embrace that strength and let it guide you to the life you were born to live.